A warm welcome to everyone joining us from all over the world. We are ready for race 2 of the Twingo Cup here from a slightly wet Slovakia ring. It is in fact time for the rain to show itself here at the Slovakian racetrack for the opening round of the Twingo Cup season. And after a very sunny day on Saturday, this time around we have a very wet track for the opening round of this season. The Twingo Cup has shown great promise in the opening race, and here you can see the different cars ready to take place on the starting grid. As always, the starting grid for race number 2 is made up of the standings, the final result of the opening race of the weekend, but with the top 4 to 8 reversed, and the ballot of this weekend has elected that the top 6 would be reversed on the starting grid for race 2, which means that yesterday's 6th place finisher, Giovanni Grasso, is going to start from pole position, as the Italian will lead the way as the lights will go out in a couple of minutes' time. The Italian that races with car number 706 for Lema Racing will head the teams 1-2 on the starting grid, as Luca Grum, also a driver for Lema Racing, will start from 2nd position. 3rd place is for Stefan Treneski with Rok Cerar in 4th place. Marko Blaževski will start from 5th alongside two-time champion Nick Stefancic, who is a race winner from yesterday and who will start from 6th position on the grid. We have 21 cars ready to take over the Slovakia ring in what is the final race of the Twingo Cup for this weekend. And as you can see, it has started to rain once more some 25-30 minutes ago. The track is very wet at the moment, and the cars will therefore have to face a very wet race. As you can see, there's also a few fans on the hills surrounding the Slovakia ring. There's a lot more of them on the covered grandstand on the main straight, the one directly to the left of this image, which is of course watching on as the drivers get ready to start off their race. There seems to be one car missing, and that is the one that was supposed to start in 9th position, meaning that Anton Jus is not on the grid so far. Let's see if he will be able to take the start in the next few minutes, but he's going to have to do that from the pit lane likely, as the pit lane is now closed. But we are getting ready for the race start to come. Of course, we're going to have a formation lap before, and then the 25 minutes of racing for race number 2 here for the Twingo Cup. It's been a phenomenal start to the year, as we had Nick Stefancic take a thoroughly deserved win ahead of Marko Blaževski, though the latter really tried his best to take the win over from Stefancic. Rok Cerar finished 3rd, rounding out the first podium of the season, but naturally today is a new day, and there's also vastly different conditions, so we're going to have to see who is going to adapt the best to such a difficult moment for the drivers. Of course, having practiced with the sun and not with the rain, it's going to be their first ever taste of wet weather racing this weekend and the season in general, which makes it even harder for them to try and focus on their task at hand. As you can see now, the grid is starting to be emptied by the marshals, as the engineers and mechanics have to leave the grid and go back to their pit garages to watch the start of the race in just a few minutes. We're then going to be ready with the formation lap, which is going to give us the opportunity to talk a bit about this phenomenal racetrack. As you can see here, the cars are lined up behind the safety car, ready to start their adventure here in race number 2 at the Slovakia ring for the opening round of the Twingo Cup. And this is the starting grid with Giovanni Grasso on pole position ahead of Luca Grum, then it's Treneski, Cerar, Blaževski, Stefancic, Muka, Steiner, Jus and Toth. In the top 10, representing 5 different countries, with Italy, North Macedonia, Slovakia, Slovenia and the Czech Republic, with Giovanni Grasso being the one on pole position. Meanwhile, here's the rest of the grid. We also have Serbia's Nikola Jancic in 20th position. Also watch out for Pavel Savicka from 15th position, and Troy Savicka in 21st for Blue Garage Racing. Savitska unfortunately not being able to finish the race, Troy that is, on Saturday, though he's going to have one more chance to redeem himself today with race number 2 as we're getting ready to get things going. On a very damp track, we saw the rain fall yesterday at the end of the program, and then the entire evening saw a quite hefty rainfall hit the track. Then some spits of rain this morning as well throughout the day before a quite heavy rainfall once more come lunchtime, a rainfall that has stayed ever since. So the marshals are now leaving the grid with just less than a minute now to go before the formation lap begins. The safety car will lead us through the opening sequences with the formation lap, as all 21 cars will have the chance to figure out what the conditions are looking like, especially with many cars around the racetrack. The 15-second board has been shown, so we're about to start off our formation lap. The green flag has been waved at the end of the grid, and here we go. The cars now finally moving towards turn number 1, and this gives us the chance to talk about the 5.2 kilometer racetrack here at the Slovakia Ring. A track made up of 14 corners, 7 to the left, 7 to the right, built between 2008 and 2009, and then opened on October 1st, 2009. It has hosted many different series, especially in tin top racing, thinking about TCR cars, for example, which are of course the pinnacle of tin top racing, which the Twingo Cup is its first step on the ladder. We've had the WTCR race of Slovakia here from 2012 all the way up to 2020, barring the 2017 season. Some amazing races there for the World Championship of Touring Cars, World Touring Car Cup to be more exact, from 2018 onwards. Then we've had TCR Europe come here with the Sprint Series in 2021, and from this year the Endurance Series continentally wise, which is the TCR European Endurance, who has raced this weekend together with the Twingo Cup and other championships here at the Slovakia Ring. And then last but not least, TCR Eastern Europe has been a stable presence here at the Slovakia Ring since 2019. We also had a plethora of other series, such as the Blank Pain GT Series, the former name with which the GT World Challenge was known, and that was back in 2014. And of course, a various number of series in Eastern Europe. We've got the FIA CEZ Endurance, which we saw together yesterday. Of course, the GT Cup Series, the F4 Central European Zone Championship, and much, much more. The cars are now starting to get a feel of the track. You can see the spray coming up quite harshly from the cars, which is going to make things even more difficult. And, of course, it's going to make the start quite tough. Now, I imagine we are going to stay behind the safety car for at least another lap, just to see the conditions. As we saw, some of the digital panels indicate that the safety car was out on track, so this also indicates that we are effectively racing. You can see it right there, the panel with the safety car lights being on. Of course, this gives drivers a much easier time as they can ease into the race better. I mean, it is much more difficult for them, especially with these cars, to get a standing start in these conditions, which is why the safety car is not going to come back into the pit lane at the end of this lap. As you can see, the timer has already started since we left the grid. So we have less than 22 minutes to go, and Giovanni Grasso is effectively turning his first lap as a race leader this season, with car number 706 in front, ahead of Luka Grum and Stefan Trenensky. As you can see now, the safety car panel has also been showed by the graphics, meaning that we are on the safety car conditions officially, and the race is going on because of that. Lap number 1 is therefore complete, of course, with the Renault Twingo being not a super fast car. It took us about 4 minutes to complete the lap behind the safety car, which means that every single time we cross the start-finish line, not in green flag conditions, Giovanni Grasso comes ever closer to a potential opening and maiden win of his 2025 season, after finishing in 6th place yesterday. You can see the cars trying to get some temperature into the tires. It's going to be a very tough ask though to do that. Now we see the cars trying to get some temperature into the tires. Of course, the safety car still holding position, as we see Giovanni Grasso, Luca Grum and Stefan Tranensky from position 1 down to 3, with of course a lot of spray being kicked up by the cars, as naturally this is going to be very tough for the drivers involved to get things going. Of course, once we're going to go back on the green flag conditions, we're going to see who is not just the fastest, but maybe even the bravest, as these conditions call for brave drivers and of course make it very tough for them to experience their true and express their true potential. But it's in these very tough conditions that the best emerge. So we'll see who's going to be covering that particular role. Of course, once the safety car will come back in, we're going to know that by the fact that it's going to turn off its lights on the exit of turn number 12. We are still far from that moment. We're right now going towards turn number 10, as Giovanni Grasso leads the entire pack behind the safety car. Of course, as a driver, it is a very stressful moment, this one, as they have to try and feel how the car handles and how the tires are going to go into the correct temperature window. However, it's going to be quite difficult for the drivers to start this race. So far, the safety car is staying out on track, and we're also completing lap number 2 behind it. Giovanni Grasso still in the lead, of course. Luca Grum in 2nd place and Stefan Tranensky in 3rd. The top 10 so far being rounded out by Martin Toth, starting in 10th. Of course, this is a very important moment for Lemma Racing, as they are effectively in a 1-2 position after finishing 5th and 6th yesterday. Lemma also enjoyed a 1-2 finish in race number 1. This time, however, it's Grum and Grasso in 2nd and 1st respectively. Yesterday it was Nick Stefancic who took the win for Lemma ahead of teammate Marko Blaževski. Naturally, of course, the Lemma Racing team is one of the most competitive in Twingo Cup. Yesterday they placed 3 cars in the top 3, thanks to Rock Cerar finishing in 3rd, with Luca Grum and Giovanni Grasso making it 5 Lemma Racing cars in the top 7. The only one that wasn't part of that team was Stefan Tranensky, the driver of the F4CZ Academy. There's 5 of them on the starting grid today. 3 of them finished in the top 8, 4 of them in the points. There's also Oliver Muka and Oliver Steiner, the 2 that just missed out on the reverse grid finishing in 7th and 8th yesterday, and then Martin Toth in 10th. The only one not scoring points was Lukasz Hulik, though he was in the top 10 of the junior drivers. See now the cars starting to take a bit more speed as they try and at least put some temperature into the tires and stay focused, because of course this is the most difficult thing to do in such a moment. You can see how complicated things have become. Though the rain doesn't seem as intense as of right now, there's a lot of standing water on track, meaning that aquaplaning and similar risks are very likely to happen, which means that the safety car and indirectly the race direction are trying to understand when the conditions will be good enough for us to go racing under green flag conditions, with the drivers having to be extremely careful about where they put their cars and when to step on the throttle, when to brake, which line to take as well, because of course under heavy rainfall, usually with a wet track, a racing line that is more towards the outside is usually better than the shorter line that sees drivers sometimes try and take as the shortest line possible and go from one apex to the other. We're now back into turn 10. We'll see what the safety car will have to say as it goes through turns 11 and 12. If the safety car is to turn off its lights, it means that we are about to go racing, and that is the case. So after 11 minutes of safety car, we are ready to go racing once more this weekend, and for the first time today with the Twingo Cup, it's going to be Giovanni Grasso who takes the field towards the start-finish line, and you can see that he's gone immediately to try and put as much temperature as possible into the tires. So Giovanni Grasso leads the way with Luca Grum in second place behind, and Stefan Treneski in the white car for the F4CZ Academy in third. It's officially green flag racing, and we're officially underway for race 2 of the Twingo Cup here from the Slovakia Ring, as Giovanni Grasso leads the pack towards the opening corner of the racetrack. He now crosses the start-finish line. There's 30 minutes and 11 seconds left to go, as Luca Grum immediately takes the slipstream to try and potentially move in front by the end of the main straight. Watch out for Stefan Treneski as well, as the cars go side by side towards turn number 1. It's Luca Grum who looks to have the advantage, but a very hard braking zone for Giovanni Grasso makes him the de facto leader, as Grasso and Grum are now side by side towards turn number 2. The latter seemingly having more straight line speed compared to the Italian, but Grasso now has the inside line, which is always better through turn 2, especially in these conditions. So we're expecting him to keep the lead of the race, though it has to be said that Luca Grum was very brave around the outside, and now the cars almost go 5 wide, as Grasso unfortunately is caught out and drops even to 5th position, as now Nick Stefancic is back into the lead after winning yesterday, and from 6th position he's already up into 1st once more. Behind him it's Stefan Treneski, the two working together with the bump draft, moving into 1st and 2nd respectively, with Luca Grum now dropping to 4th, as here we see Marco Blazewski fight against Giovanni Grasso, who's already down to 6th position, now 7th. That was the risk, as he was staying in 1st place in such a close field. Of course, the slipstream being super important with the Twingo, as now we can see the fight unfold especially with the 777 car handled by Ty Kovacic, who's trying to make some inroads for 9th place over Toth. As we have a spin with car number 33 losing the back end, and that is Mateusz Kutera, who's now trying to turn the car back around. He's eventually doing so correctly and now rejoining the race, though he has lost plenty of time and positions, dropping to the back of the grid. Meanwhile, in front, it's still Nick Stefancic, as here you can see Luca Grum trying to defend 3rd place from Martin Toth, who had a phenomenal getaway as well. And you can see the drivers who were starting in the 3rd and 4th rows of the grid being the quickest so far, as here you can see the entire pack of the top 9 cars coming in hot towards the penultimate corner with just 10 minutes left on the clock, which is likely going to be 3 laps of this race. As now you can see in this particular shot, Toth being able to overtake Luca Grum for 3rd place. And as the cars go towards the start finish line again, it's Nick Stefancic with a 1.2 second gap over Stefan Trenenski. 3rd place belongs to Toth, ahead of Grum, with 5th place belonging to Rok Cerar, finished in 3rd yesterday. Meanwhile, we can see now the fight happen for 2nd position as Toth moves to the inside of Trenenski, thus taking 2nd position away from car number 427. So it's Toth again at the top, as we can now see a close fight between him and Trenenski, who's staying hot on his tail, maybe looking to the outside towards turn number 3. Let's see if that becomes the inside line or if he's going to stay behind. He's glued to the back of Trenenski as the two now go towards turn number 3, but Toth seems to have the upper hand, though he has to control his car. The same goes for Trenenski, who makes a mistake and goes wide into the gravel slightly, as there's also the car of Toth stranded into the gravel into turn 3. They're two potentially making contact in the braking zone. That is why both of them went wide, and at the end of the day it is race over for Martin Toth in car number 105, as now the drivers try and make the last overtakes, because I'm pretty certain that the safety car will have to be called out once more, given where car number 105 is stopped at. Meanwhile, Nick Stefancic keeps the lead, and now up into 2nd is Luca Grum, as here you can see Giovanni Grasso trying to make a move up the inside for what is 4th position, though he has to stay in favor. There's another car spinning behind. That looks to be someone, and it was car number 711. Yes, it was Oliver Gmuka, who was starting in 7th and was in 10th before the start of this lap. Here he is, but meanwhile in front we still have Nick Stefancic in the lead and Luca Grum in 2nd position. This is the fight for 3rd, with car number 21 belonging to Marko Blaževski trying to fight against Rok Cerar for 3rd place. So far though, it's Blaževski in front. Behind them there is Italian Giovanni Grasso in 5th position, with now the yellow flag being shown, and that is likely because of this. Vaclav Janic Jr. stopped on track, and we have the safety car called out once more, as now this race is quite likely to finish under safety car conditions, given how the cars were lapping behind it at the start of the race. These are very tough conditions, and of course we can't blame the drivers for trying to overtake, and naturally some of them finishing their race just like this. That is the spin that put out of contention for second place Martin Toth. Behind him, Stefan Tranecki was able to continue the race and escape the gravel trap, only touching the grass. Of course, the very wet part of the circuit outside of the racing line was to be blamed for the loss of control of both cars. As the safety car now is back out on track with Nick Stefancic in first position. Behind him, it's Luka Grum, who was starting in second, briefly got the lead, then dropped down to even fifth position before bouncing back up to second. Whereas the fight for third sees Marko Blaževski emerge as victorious for now. And since we are behind the safety car, this is likely going to be the penultimate lap of the race, as the marshals are doing everything they can to try and clear the track by the end of this lap. We have a couple of cars that were left stationary throughout. As we now go towards turn number 3, this is car number 88 of Václav Janik Jr. We saw him in the gravel and near the wall a lap ago, and unfortunately his race coming to a close as well. Things have changed, of course, in the standings following the different cars that hit trouble throughout this race so far. And we see Nick Stefancic in the lead ahead of Luka Grum, then it's Blaževski in third ahead of Cerar, Grasso and Kovacic holding sixth position. Then it's Steiner, Tranecki, who was able to rejoin the track and keep 8th place ahead of Savitska, and Gmuka, that is the top 10. As the cars now are proceeding quite slowly in order to let the marshals through with the stranded car number 88. We're approaching now the end of the second sector, which will tell us whether this race will finish under safety car conditions, or if we're going to get one more lap of racing. Meanwhile, car number 73 seems to have caught some grass under its front splitter, which is starting to detach slightly from the car. And that is Seme in 14th position. Bojan Seme, driver for Lema Racing, who finished 12th yesterday. Unfortunately, even today, he looks like it's going to be hard for him to finish in the points. We're now going towards turn number 10, so let's see what the safety car does. I think we might just squeeze in one more lap, should the race, of course, restart at the end of this one. But I didn't see more cars in the gravel traps, though it's going to have to wait the decision, as the safety car has turned its lights off. And therefore, we're going to get one final lap of racing for the Twingo Cup under green flag conditions. Nick Stefancic was hoping that the race would finish on the safety car conditions, but unfortunately for him, it's not going to go like that. And now we're ready to go, as Nick Stefancic will lead Luka Grum, Marko Blaževski and the rest of the field towards the final lap of the race here, race number 2 of the Twingo Cup, with Nick Stefancic, a two-time champion and championship leader following yesterday's win, lead the pack, and he already has quite a hefty advantage over Luka Grum. A restart timed perfectly for Stefancic, as now Grum has to face Marko Blaževski, who's in third position and looking very strong indeed, as now the pack goes towards turn number 1. There's also pole sitter Giovanni Grasso in 5th place, trying to gain some time, though we also have Rok Cerar on the attack around the outside of Blaževski for 3rd place. Meanwhile, there's also car number 777 of Tai Kovacic attacking Grasso into turn 1. We also go 3 wide on the outskirts of the top 10. And we saw Bojan Seme trying to attack despite the damage on his front splitter, as the cars now go through turn 2 We see Blazewski still trying to defend from Rakterar. The latter now taking the slipstream. Maybe, just maybe looking to the inside line, though that is not going to happen, says Marko Blazewski, as Grasso now looks to the outside of Cerar as a result. Blazewski is now certain of third place in these couple of corners, but look at Grasso, who's trying a move up the inside of Rakterar, who however defends masterfully, whereas behind there's also car number 66 of Oliver Steiner trying to attack Kovacic, who's trying to defend, but the two eventually come together as contact almost spins around car number 66, who has to go through the escape road in the gravel. Let's see if he's able to get back to the racetrack. He was struggling to do so, but I think he has managed to get it going once more. Though now car number 66 seems to be stopped, but in front there's no real change as Nick Stefancic is still holding the lead for Lema Racing. He took the win in race 1 as well, and he's also trying to do the same here in race number 2, following a very chaotic, wet race here at the Slovakia Ring, who's proving once again to be an iconic track for such a competitive series, as now Nick Stefancic rounds out turn number 10 for the final time as the clock strikes 0, while car number 73 is trying to be on the move, and that is Seme trying to attack. But Stefancic so far has been absolutely flawless this season. He was able to take the win despite a very hard fight in race number 1, but he was dominant here under the rain in race number 2 at the Slovakia Ring. And as Marko Blazewski and Rakterar go side by side at the penultimate corner, the focus is going to go to Nick Stefancic, who rounds out the final 2 corners of not just the race but the opening weekend of the season as well, as he completes the double and wins race number 2 of the Twingo Cup here at the Slovakia Ring under the rain. It's a masterclass from Nick Stefancic, just ahead of Luka Grum, while Marko Blazewski was once again able to finish on the podium after crossing the line in second yesterday. He's third today as he finishes behind the top 2 and just in front of Rakterar in 4th. Trenenski is ultimately able to recover from 8th all the way up to 5th, as second position sees Nikola Jancic with a phenomenal comeback from 20th on the grid to 6th at the finish line, whereas pole sitter Giovanni Grasso claims another points finish with 7th. Gmuka finishes 8th. 9th position goes to car number 703 of Luka Flerin, whereas the top 10 is rounded out by car number 96, Pavel Savitska. What a great performance for Nick Stefancic. As you can see here, we have the highlights of this race, number 2. That was the highlights of race number 2 for the Twingo Cup. A phenomenal weekend of racing rounded out by a race under the rain. And it was once again Nick Stefancic to take the win here at the Slovakia Ring. Here are the final classifications, with Nick Stefancic taking the win instead, ahead of Luka Grm and Marko Blaževski, with Rok Cerar and Stefan Treneski rounding out the top 5. And that is all from a wet but beautiful Slovakia Ring nonetheless. Thank you for being with us, and see you guys next time.